This is an interview with Mr. Russell A. Pruitt for the Oral History Project of the Civil Rights Institute at Miles College at 2 p.m. on June 7th, 1996, and I'm Benny Miles. How are you doing, Mr. Pruitt?
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing good, doing good. Were you born in Birmingham?
Yes, I was.
What part of Birmingham?
I was born at Community Hospital in Ensley. I grew up in the Ensley area.
Community Hospital. Is that hospital still there?
Yes, but it's not utilized. It is currently known as Holy Family Hospital.
Okay.
That's the vacant building that's sitting over there by Holy Family High School.
So you grew up in the Ansley area, did you?
That is correct.
You're the only child, or you have brothers and sisters?
Oh, no, I'm the eldest of 6. I have
big family.
2 brothers and 3 sisters.
Okay. And where do you come in? Are you the oldest, the youngest, in between?
Top dog, I'm it. I'm the oldest.
So now the oldest is the top dog.
Yeah, that's right.
So
Pick of the litter.
You got an opportunity to get everything first.
No.
Okay.
No, it didn't work out that way.
Oh, okay. You planned it that way, but it didn't work out. What about your parents? Are they from Birmingham?
Originally, my father is from Bullock County, down southeast of here. And my mother was from Noxubee County, Mississippi.
Noxubee?
Noxubee County, a little city called Paulette, Mississippi.
Have you ever been to where your mom's from?
No, I recently found this information because I've been doing a family genealogy. And I thought that she came from Macon, Mississippi, which is near Columbus. And then I found out through some birth records that she was really from Paulette.
Okay.
So that's been interesting, stumbling into your relatives going up the family tree.
I can imagine. What about your dad?
His folks were from Union Springs, which I say is in Bullock County.
You been down there before?
Closest I've been to there is Tuskegee.
Okay.
Down on Tuskegee campus, which is south of Bullock County. So
neither of them, or does either of them have family still in either of those places?
That's what I've yet to ascertain. Both of my parents are deceased.
Okay.
And about a month ago, a friend of mine, I play around with PCs, gave me some software to generate family trees. And what it does, each time you add a person, it creates a page for them. And then that page leads you to ask more questions.
Oh.
So I will probably, once I get all the information from my neighbors my relatives in the area, I will probably then venture to the cities of my parents' birth to see what else I can find out.
How has it been? Very interesting so far?
Yes. I have a great uncle who did not have a name until he was 40 years old.
Are you serious?
He lived 40 years using initials.
What were his initials?
R.L.
R.L.
And he moved to Michigan. And in order to work and income tax and all that stuff, the state of Michigan said, you can't use initials here. You have to have a name.
Really?
And he took the name of my uncle, his nephew, at 40 years of age. And his name is now Richard Lee.
Why could he not have a name before? What was he told? Do you know?
He's never told us. He just said that he's always been RL, and that's even what we call him to this day, RL. We still don't call him Richard. But it's just one of those things, growing up in a large family, living where records are kept by midwives and that kind of thing. Sometimes it's just, people are known by initials, nicknames, and that was common for the time in the area.
Mm-hmm. What about your other brothers and sisters and the environment where you grew up? How was that for you? Naturally, it was, I would imagine, it was segregated, or was it segregated at the time?
Yeah, it was segregated. We lived, to be exact, we lived right about where Gargis Pontiac is today, and I-20
Yeah.
That area, there used to be some, for those who don't know, shotgun houses and double tenant houses. And we lived in a double tenant house with 2 rooms. And we had 8 people living in 2 rooms.
So your mom and dad had a room by the...
Oh, no. No. My mom and dad had a bed in the room that we all slept in.
Oh. Everybody slept in one room.
Yes.
And how well, you didn't know anything different, so it had to be okay, or was it just...
Well, I mean, if you're the child, I mean, it's definitely okay because you're not paying any bills. I mean, you're not going to say, well, Dad, you know, I'm really tired of you and Mom going to bed in my room. You know, it didn't work out like that. We had the living room, bedroom were all pretty much the same room, and we had a kitchen, which doubled as the bathroom. And in that bathroom, we used a number 3 tub to take a bath in.
Is that what kind of tub? Is that a long or round, like
It's a round
tin tub?
one, about like...
A tin tub, like
yeah,
a round
round
something?
tin tub.
That we see in the movies, huh?
Or you see hanging on the back of the house when people get through with it. It wasn't, I lied, it was not 8 of us at that time. There were about, because my baby brother and sister were born after we left there, so that was 6 of us.
Okay, but still
6
people.
Yeah, you had to be a close family, and everybody had to bathe because
Yeah. Like,
it gets rough when you're that close.
I would imagine, though, with 6 people, 6 children at that time, right?
No, it was just 4 at that time.
4 children, 2
before
adults.
We
So
moved.
So it's 6, 4 kids and 2 adults. Did everybody take a bath the same day, or did you take baths several times, or just on Saturdays?
We all know, not in that house.
Okay.
In that house, you bathe every day. And you had a supervisor to see that you bathed every day. And if you didn't do what the supervisor said, you didn't want the man in charge to come in and say anything.
Really?
Yes, we all bathe every day. That was a prerequisite.
What did your parents do? Did your mom work outside of the home, or what did your dad do?
Not at first. I don't remember Mom ever leaving home. And maybe when I got up to be about, I want to say 13, 14 is when I can first remember her having a job. And my mom worked for the Birmingham Housing Authority for a time.
Oh, okay.
She helped place people in project housing.
So I guess, did you want to go and go to work and live in some of the houses that she had something to do with, or did you want to stay where you were?
Well, she didn't get that job till after we had moved to the projects ourselves.
Okay.
We moved, at the time all of this was going on, Tuxedo Projects was being built along with I-20. So when they had to take the space where we were to build I-20, we moved. We were amongst the first families to move into the Tuxedo Projects.
Oh, they must have been really something, huh?
Well,
Nice
again, you know, I'm at what, 6, 7 years old. I could care less, you know. I just knew that we all weren't in the same room. The place was new.
Yeah.
And we could sell scrap iron or scrap metal to a guy coming around with a mule drawn wagon. So we sold scrap iron and had money for ice cream and candy, whatever the heck we wanted.
So you had a pretty decent life.
I thought so.
What was the community like where you lived? Oh, and your dad, what about him? Let's talk about
My dad
more
worked for a company called Union Envelope, which is still here in Birmingham.
Oh, my.
And he, we never really knew what my dad did, per se, whether he made the envelopes himself or whether he ran a machine or what portion of the work he done, but we always knew that he worked at Union Envelope.
And he got up every morning and went out to house to go work.
Every morning. And the one thing that I remember most about my father is he always wore hush puppies to work.
Those the type of shoe?
Yeah,
like a
little rubber sole, soft shoe. And he would never buy any new clothes. He would always wear everything until it couldn't be worn out. And I can remember him wearing patched pants and walking on the side of his shoes because he had children that needed things that if he bought for himself, we wouldn't have.
He felt like he needed to buy for the kids.
So that's just a picture that I always see of him leaving the house.
What was the community like where you lived? Were there a lot of
Well,
kids there? Were there, in terms of a movement, any civil rights kinds of things going on during that time?
If there were, I was oblivious to them. Again, I was 6, 7, 8 years old. And at that age, all I was thinking about was having a good time. And the things that we saw people come in and arrest people. But you have a tendency to get, I guess, jaded. As long as they don't come to your house, it's okay.
Then when they come to your house,
it's different. I was fortunate. I grew up in a time and in an area where the Temptations were starting to become the Temptations. My father and my uncle were good friends of Paul Williams and Eddie Kendricks. And they were people that I didn't care for because every time they came over to the house got full of smoke and they drew a crowd, and I really didn't care for crowds. And I was shorter than everybody else, and I just didn't like it. So,
but you were used to this, having a lot of company there all the time.
We always had a lot of company. People were big on fish fries, and if a neighbor didn't have, you had, and you shared, and it was, everybody kind of catered to everybody else because everybody was always running short on something.
But it was a sense of family too.
Throughout the whole community.
How did you get involved in the movement? Was it through something, a flyer that you might have seen, or through your church? Or did you just go and say, well, I'm going to volunteer and do something?
No. I was caught up in I would like to say, a wave. At the time, most of the activities in Birmingham started, I was in elementary school. I was about 10 or 11 years old. And there was a signal that the high school students at Western Olin would get to tell them it's time to come downtown. And as they left Western Olin, they would spread out, and they would come to all the elementary schools. And of course, as kids are today, nobody wanted to be in school, so that was our excuse to get out of school. When they came through, we would get up, get right in the floor with them, and leave class and go downtown. It wasn't that we were so cognizant of the fact that we were symbolizing something. We just had the opportunity to hang out with our older friends, do what they were doing, and just went with the flow. In going with the flow, I saw a lot of things. I saw dogs get put on people. I saw hoses get turned on people. They kept most of us back. Most of the older kids kept the younger kids back.
What did you think when we saw those fighting and arguing and the flags and dogs and all that? What did you think? Did you know it was going to happen?
No, you ask yourself why. You ask yourself, you were with these people when they got there. So you do know that they didn't do anything, but maybe they let school out early, and that shouldn't have it shouldn't have ended in those kinds of actions. But it did. And it's difficult for a parent to explain why you have to walk a certain way, act a certain way, when it puts their pride in jeopardy. So a lot of times when you come back home, you generally will get talked to about leaving school, period. As opposed to you were doing a good thing, you were trying to help things be better. Because we really didn't know that's what we were doing.
Nobody told you gave you information, they gave you limited information.
Well, because the teachers were under a system where they were trying to keep their job, even though the school was predominantly black, the Board of Education, the people that hired them, the people that gave them their tenure, they were white, and they were the ones in charge. So even black teachers, even if they wanted to agree with it, even if they wanted to say, rah, 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 yes, you should go, there was always that little invisible force field there that said, you can only say, you shouldn't do this. So there was no one in elementary school at that time that actually talked to us until the assassinations of John F. Kennedy and Dr. Martin Luther King.
And then things started.
Then people stopped to talk because it was just such a traumatic time for everybody that they felt like then the students need to be talked to because all the teachers were crying and we didn't understand why.
What was going on?
So those times people did talk to us.
Did you have an opportunity during that time that you were growing up to hear Dr. King or to see him, Martin Luther King?
I can vaguely remember seeing him, but again, the whole thing at that time for me was I was glad to be with my friends, my older friends. You know, the older kids in the neighborhood thought we were something special because we were with them. And being that I've always been large, I always looked like one of the older kids. So it was more along for the ride until
it got serious, huh?
Till we started busing.
What happened then? First of all, were the kids looking at you thinking you were older, and you said you were one of the older, you were a bigger kid. Did that bother you at all, or did they look at you as a leader and their protector or something like that?
Most of the kids we went with that were older kids knew me, and they knew that I wasn't one of them. So again, they would kind of say, hey, you know, stay back now. This is where we want you all to stop. So when they would go to the park, they would stop us near the church across the street from the park. See, they never would let us get, you know, and a few of them would stay and almost act as instant chaperones. And they would kind of keep us back. And you got the impression that they knew what might happen.
But what about the movement then? Did you know any of the other people, and was your family a member, or where you went to church, were they involved? That you can remember? The
church, yes. But as far as, again, everything is geared to protect people at that age group. The only people that were actively involved that I can remember were high school students and above. And at that time, I was like in 6th or 7th grade. And you would hear people talking, but it would always be like, this is an adult conversation, you all need to leave. So there was never anything that, you know, I can't recall ever that anyone consciously said, okay, these are things that you all need to know. It was more of a thing that you all are too young. We don't want you involved in this at this time. And it never was said that way. It was just, that's the impression you got from the way it was handled. Yes.
What about your children? Have you told them about the movement? How much do they know about it and your involvement in whatever way?
My children and I talk a lot. So pretty much everything I've gone through in my life, period, they know about because we've talked about it. Because instead of me just saying to them, do this, don't do that, I try and tell them this is what I did and these are the results of what I did.
That's on whether it was something that you may have gotten in a little trouble with or something
that you... lot, didn't matter. Because I feel like if I tell them only the good things, only the nice things that I've done, then I've done them a disservice.
Okay.
I talked to, I can't remember the latest name, but the pre-interview for this.
Mrs. Lola Hendricks.
Miss Hendricks, yes. She asked me, what did I get from the civil rights movement?
Yes.
And I thought about it all last night. The one thing that it gave me was security and the belief that no one is better than me. Unless I choose not to be all that I can be.
Okay.
And it doesn't seem like much on the surface. But instead of me being the fortunate one that said, I sat at the lunch counter. And I do remember the sit-ins at Newberry.
Okay.
But I wasn't allowed to sit in at Newberry's, and it wasn't white people, it was my parents.
Okay.
But it's the things that when a parent says, you can be what you want to be as long as you do your best at whatever you try to do. I saw people go out and become everything that they said they wanted to be. I can remember signs saying colored and white.
What did you think about that when you do you remember what age you were when you saw those signs is one question, and then when you look back, and I don't know if you've been to the Civil Rights Institute to go through
about 3 or 4 times.
Okay.
You can't make it all the way through sometimes.
Okay, I want to talk about that. What did you think then, even though that was just a given during that time, that's the way it was.
Yeah.
But so, Did you think anyway one way or the other? What about now?
Well, I thought it was stupid because if you ever look at, say, a white water fountain and a colored water fountain, they're usually side by side.
Yeah.
And they're connected by a common water source.
Right.
So you look at it and says, well, they're drinking from the same place I'm drinking from. It's just I'm using the left hand, they're using the right hand. And I thought it was stupid.
And their water fountain looked a little better, although the water was the
Not in
same.
the parks.
Okay.
In the parks because they, in order to clean one, you had to clean the other because you would offend some white citizenry.
Okay.
So they both pretty much look the same, when you were in a park that white people frequented. And it also seemed ludicrous to me that my grandmother cleaned and cooked for white people, but they were afraid of black people, and we were preparing the food that was going in you and in your children. Mm-hmm. If we were going to do something to you, you had given us, the opportunity to do it.
Sure, yeah.
But you're still going to say, I'm less than you, and I'm taking care of your future. When a black person raises somebody else's children, when anybody of another color or ethnic background raises somebody else's children, you have placed your literal future and immortality in somebody who you say is less than you had. So see, it all was just ludicrous. It didn't make any sense.
So you said you didn't sit at the counters at J.J. Newberry.
My dad and them knew.
What did they say?
My dad was one of those folks that only said very few words. He would say, don't do it, and you didn't do it.
And you knew by the tone of the look that was just your dad and you had better not do it.
Yes.
Okay.
He didn't make it about, he didn't disappear. He was always there, and what he said he meant, and there was never any doubt.
Okay. So you didn't sit at the counters. What did you think when you saw Newberry's being demolished? Did you think they should have kept that counter in there or anything?
Yes. Yes, because progress is wonderful, but if we don't hold on to some of the history, some of the past, then we're doomed to create the same mistakes over and over again. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that's why it's a good thing that the particular statues are in the park, because they are reminders of a mentality that exists today, even though it's cloaked.
How would you say it exists today? You
Well,
have anything you
I'm
want
a
to share?
man, and I'm going to say nobody should have an abortion because they're killing a child.
Okay.
I can't conceive a child. Mm-hmm. I can't carry a child to term. But I'm the one that's saying a woman shouldn't have an abortion. Mm-hmm. There's no different than when you say you, as a black person, are my chattel, and you shouldn't learn to read. Mm-hmm. By the same token, you have people that say there shouldn't be same-sex marriages. Mm-hmm. Well, during slavery, post-slavery, any period you want to look at in this country, anybody that they wanted to subjugate, anybody that they wanted to demean, the first thing they would say is, the Bible says you shouldn't, that slaves' marriages aren't sanctioned. The tradition of saying that when persons of color got married, they jumped a broom, is not an African tradition. Okay. It is an African-American tradition that started with slavery because we weren't allowed to have a church-sanctioned marriage. Even though they said we should believe in Christianity and Christ and we should have our own separate church, but they weren't allowed to sanction marriages. Mm-hmm. So the ceremony, everybody would gather around, you jump over the broom, and officially you were married. Because people were trying to find an identity. Mm-hmm. And nothing changed. You take people in the 60s and you say, here's your school, separate but equal. But when you talk to Johnny, you find that Johnny has a microscope and you have a magnifying glass. Granted, the magnifying glass will show you detail, but the microscope will tell you content.
Okay.
And that's the difference. You take affirmative action. Whenever anybody is against affirmative action, the first thing that comes out is you want someone less qualified to do that job. Mm-hmm. The second thing that comes out is they're taking my job. Now see, the problem I have with that is if it's your job, it's already filled, nobody's taking it. So if the job is being filled through affirmative action, it's a job available for whomever fills the job. Mm-hmm. And affirmative action has never meant less qualified hired. It has meant I am qualified. Why is it you won't allow me the opportunity to do the job?
When you look at job, then you, the company that you worked for, you attended college and you moved up the ranks, so to speak, the corporate ladder. Do you think that the movement is in some way responsible for you working in the kind of job that you had now, or you think you would have been able to get something?
Absolutely,
like
because the reason the phone company hired me in the first place was because of affirmative action. Had that not been in place, they probably wouldn't even talk to me. They would have accepted my application, and I never would have heard from them again.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I know that to be a fact is because that's what I was told to my face.
Your prospective employer at that time
One
that
of the
interviewed
one of
with
the
you?
interviewers said the reason why we haven't had a black male to come in here and pass all these tests, you're the first one to do it.
Mm-hmm. How did that make you feel?
I had a family. It didn't make me feel anything. I needed a job.
Mm-hmm.
My mother believed and my father believed that, I'm sorry, my father was deceased at that time. My mother believed that hiring on with the phone company was a good company, like the power company
Yeah.
or the gas company. So I had done a good thing by going down there to get a job.
Mm-hmm.
And my primary thought was, I can't do any less for my children than my father did for me. So at that particular point in time when I was told that, it was, thank you, Jesus, whoever did it, I'm glad I got a job. Maybe I can take care of my family now.
That person that interviewed you at that time and made that statement, after you started working there, did you ever interact any at all or ever see that person?
Not ever again.
Okay. I just
No,
wanted
she was a wonderful lady. Well, she did, they didn't hire me immediately. They put me in the only test I didn't pass today was a typing test.
Mm-hmm.
And I told them I wouldn't because my skills were rusty. They put me in a typing class to build up my typing skills.
Okay.
And when I came back to take the test again, because they got feedback from the school saying, who's ready? And they told them I was ready. And when I got there, I got nervous.
Mm-hmm.
And I just blew up. I just blew the whole test. She came in then. She heard about me messing up on the test. She called me into her office. And she said, let me tell you something. I know what you can do, and I'm tired of you messing around. And you take your behind there, pass that test so I can get you a job.
Okay.
So I went back and passed the test.
When you look at the movement then, and you look at the movement now, do you think the movement, civil rights, the NAACP, SCLC, whichever it is, or the movement, do you think it has made a difference? It's making a difference now? Do you think
Today?
Is it any
No.
good? It's not any good, or what do you think should be done?
What I think is that we've forgotten how it started. It didn't start. Well, no, I'm sorry. Where it started was in the church, okay? Because that was the only place we could safely gather.
Mm-hmm.
But it permeated into the streets
Okay.
with media now and all. A lot of our leaders are, in my opinion, the media hawks. If the cameras are not running, they're not there.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as the camera lights go off, they're gone. When you ask them, why is it there was a time when you knew? There was a time when the minister of a church knew every family in the community that his church resided in.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I doubt if there's a minister. They may know a lot of the congregation, but the congregation may not live in the community that that church is a part of.
Yeah.
When we say these young men need good jobs,
Mm-hmm.
you can't expect them to go to McDonald's and earn a living. That's part of the problem. Number one, you're telling the person that's hiring that they should hire somebody that dropped out of high school.
Mm-hmm.
You telling them that they should hire someone who can't read on a third grade level. Instead of our leaders turning to those young men and say, you want a better job? What are you willing to do to get it? Because I own a company. I've got a piece of equipment. Say one of these cameras. That costs $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. Do you actually think I'm going to let you touch that camera if you can't read instructions?
Okay.
Because there will be printed instructions somewhere that tells you a mark to hit, a camera angle, a button to push, and when to do it.
Yeah.
And the worst thing of it is I went to Church's Chicken, ordered some chicken, and my bill came to $5 and some change. So I reached in my pocket, and I gave the young man a $10 bill, and I told him, I said, I have the exact change. He looked up at me and said, but it's already in the computer now.
He couldn't compute
the first thing that bothered me was, I started saying, man, you need to go somewhere. And then I thought, this baby just doesn't know. And that's part of my fault. Okay. I sat back and let too many of them get by without knowing. So instead of trying to embarrass him and get loud, I eased over the counter and said, baby, all you have to do is just give me $5 back. And take this change. And I tried to do it so no one else would hear, because instead of being embarrassed, I was hurt because I felt like I had let him down. See, I played football in this city. Okay. I was part of one of the first groups to integrate Phillips High School.
Yeah.
I saw fights there. I saw in a number of things. Somebody somewhere during all this time watched over me. In addition to God, I give God his credit. But there were people in the community that watched over me.
So you wonder,
why am I not doing that for these people, for these young people?
So that's what you think
I think that's what the movement is lacking. That we've forgotten that we have to be, to use a term, shepherds. And usually the shepherd is not sitting at the hut. He's out in the field with the flock. We just seem to forget to get out in the field with the flock. So I decided, instead of telling people that this is what should be done, that wherever I could, I would do it. When they first had shootings about 5 years ago, at a high school football game, it happened to be at a game played by one of the schools that I attended. And I said, somebody was up there watching over me. So I volunteered to help with security.
Very good.
First thing my neighbor said is, well, you go get shot. And I told him I could get shot sitting at McDonald's having a Happy Meal. So at least if I get shot, because I've been over there and I stopped the fight, or I put somebody out of Legion Field, and I get shot walking home because they're waiting out there for me, at least when y'all bury me or when I go to the hospital, you know why I got shot. Instead of me saying, well, I was just there having a Happy Meal. Sometimes you've got to accept the risk. And that's what happened in the Civil Rights Movement. That's why people, no matter how many times the dogs were put on them, no matter how many hoses were turned on them, they went back. No matter how long they were incarcerated. And incarceration was really incarceration. It wasn't air conditioning, cable TV. It was like cords of wood stuck in there. And I know this because I know the people that were jailed. They were my friends. They told us about it. They told us that was one of the reasons why they didn't want us there. We were too young. But these people sacrificed a lot. We have 3 children that were beautiful rising stars, 4 children, the babies, that had to die just so people said, wait a minute, maybe these are human beings. See, and here it is, we sit around and we say, oh, do I look good today? As soon as the camera go off, well, got to go to the next rally. We do a lot of marching, and I imagine that marching is good now. It gives people exercise, it helps their heart out. But what in the heck do we do when we finish the march? We go and plan the next march.
So if you had a challenge, before we end up, 2 questions. What would your challenge be to the movement? And also, is there something that I didn't ask you that you'd like to share?
The challenge to the movement. Be honest with the kids, the young people that you're working with. Don't tell them that there's a pie in the sky if they don't lay the foundation to achieve that pie.
Okay.
If we're going to tell our young, in particular young black men, if we're going to tell them that you can be whatever you want to be, please first be kind enough to tell them they must learn to read.
Okay.
Because there are too many young men out there that says, I ain't gonna make no money at McDonald's, me flipping a hamburger for minimum wage. Well, if they ever took the time to look around McDonald's, everybody there does not flip hamburgers. Everybody there does not make minimum wage. Do you think if McDonald's can boast that they've sold billions of hamburgers around the world, that somebody didn't make millions of dollars off of those hamburgers. And guess what? They never have to worry about when they lay down their head, where they lay it, or look over their shoulder for who is coming to take it from them.
That's true.
If we are going to ask and try to achieve civil rights and equality, then we've got to start by instilling self-importance and respect within our young people.
And anything I didn't ask you that you'd like to share?
No more than it's been a blast hanging out with you.
Okay, thank you.
When